Story 1. My uncle once gave me the chance to house sit while he and his family vacationed in Europe. My aunt and cousin had already left earlier, but my uncle stayed behind to wrap up some work before flying out. When he was done, he asked me to take care of the house for a few weeks. Knowing how much I wanted to live alone, he figured this would be a good first experience. Before leaving, he made it very clear that I wasn't allowed to invite anyone over or spend too much time outside in the yard. I didn't really understand his reasoning, but with the heavy snowfall, I figured it was just to prevent me from slipping or getting hurt. He gave me a long list of instructions, left the fridge packed with food, and then took off. At first, everything went great. Better than I expected, honestly. I didn't feel weird being alone. In fact, I kind of loved the freedom. But then, in the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange noise. I wasn't scared, just surprised. So I got out of bed to check it out. The room was pitch dark, except for the strong moonlight beaming in through the window. I looked outside to see if it was snowing, and sure enough, it was. A full-on blizzard. As I stood there watching the snowstorm, I suddenly heard the noise again, this time coming from downstairs, near the front door. That's when my heart really started racing. I thought maybe something had hit the door, but I wasn't sure. I went downstairs, flipping on every light I passed, and peeked through the peephole. I didn't see anything, so I carefully cracked the door, trying not to let the cold air in. What I saw made me freeze. A line of fresh footprints in the snow, leading directly to the door. I slammed it shut and locked it immediately. I was breathing heavily, wondering what kind of person would even be outside in weather like that. I ran over to the back door and looked through the glass, but the snow made it hard to see anything clearly. Still, I could have sworn I saw a small figure, maybe a child, walking away from the house. It looked like a kid, probably around 9 or 10 years old. A brief pause in the wind gave me a better view for a second, and sure enough, there was a child wandering in the snow. I felt a mix of fear and concern. I ran upstairs to grab my phone and called 911, reporting what I had seen. I stayed by the back window, hoping to catch another glimpse, but the kid had vanished. When the police arrived, I told them everything. We were standing in the kitchen when we heard a soft knock at the front door. One of the officers told me to stay back while they went to answer it. As the door opened, the same child from earlier stood there. One of the cops brought the kid inside, clearly worried. The boy wasn't even wearing a proper coat, just a thin sweatshirt. The other officer stepped out to look around and came back inside, locking the door behind him. The boy's face was expressionless, like he didn't know where he was. The officer asked him questions, where he came from, who his parents were, but the boy barely responded. It was like he wasn't fully present. I stood there watching it all happen, but the entire moment didn't feel real. What kind of child wanders through a blizzard at night? Why did he show up here at my uncle's house, and why was he acting so blank? We didn't get any real answers for weeks. By then, my uncle had come back, and I no longer needed to house sit. Eventually, the investigators learned that the boy believed my uncle's house was his home. But then 2 weeks later, another family came forward and positively identified him as their son, one who had gone missing months ago. That was strange enough on its own. But then, not even a month later, another missing kid was found sitting in the road right outside the same house again, while my uncle was away. The police claimed there was no connection between the two kids, but it felt like too much of a coincidence. I started thinking about why my uncle had insisted no one visit, and why I wasn't supposed to spend time in the yard. Why did he leave days after his family? Was something going on that I didn't know about? Maybe I'm overthinking it. The cops searched the house and my uncle was cooperative. Maybe it really was all coincidence, but even now I'm not sure. Story 2. Winter has always been my favorite season. The snow, the holidays. Something about that time of year just puts me in a better mood. But living in a cold state has its drawbacks. I'd been working as a part-time DoorDash driver for almost 3 years, and snowy months made the job much tougher. The roads wouldn't get plowed right away, and sometimes even when they were, more snow would fall and cover everything again. Still, I usually chose to work during snowstorms. Fewer drivers meant more orders, and customers tipped higher knowing we were out in bad weather. One night in mid-December, we got hit with a heavy storm. I didn't start delivering until 7 or 8 p.m. due to my other job, but I hit the road when I could. The streets were mostly deserted, and the DoorDash app was sending me great offers. After finishing 2 quick deliveries, I started heading back, but the storm kept getting worse. Visibility was terrible, and the roads weren't being cleared fast enough. My car had all-wheel drive and decent tires, but even then it was a struggle. At one intersection, I could barely get going again because my tires just spun in place. Eventually, another delivery offer came in. I looked at it for a moment, debating whether I should accept. I ended up rejecting it and closed the app. These roads were getting too dangerous. I wasn't far from town, so I just aimed to get somewhere safer. I was driving about 20 miles per hour on a road with a 45 limit when I suddenly saw something huge in the middle of the street. I didn't notice it in time, slammed on the brakes, and though I stopped, the car slid into a deep pile of snow off the side of the road. It wasn't a hard crash, but I was stuck. I stayed calm, turned on my hazard lights, and called for roadside help. The operator said someone would be there in 15 to 20 minutes. I thanked him and leaned back in my seat, relieved. A few minutes later, I noticed a flickering orange light in my mirror. A work truck pulled up behind me. I was surprised at how fast they arrived. It had only been 4 minutes, but I wasn't complaining. A man got out and approached my window. I rolled it down a bit, and he asked if I needed help. I said yes and explained what happened. He walked to the back of my car, supposedly to figure out how to tow it out. I watched through the mirror until, out of nowhere, he opened my trunk and looked inside. Then he mumbled, "Sorry," and slammed it shut. That didn't sit right with me. Why would he even need to open my trunk? Feeling uneasy, I called the roadside assistance number again. After a few rings, the same guy answered, still on his way. That's when I realized something was wrong. The man at my car wasn't with them. Right then, he returned to my window and said he needed my keys and for me to step out. I kept my phone to my ear and told him I needed a minute. He just stood there, silently staring. Trying to hide my panic, I slowly rolled the window up. Immediately, he started pounding on the glass and yelling at me, demanding to know what I was doing. I locked the doors, and the moment he heard that, he yanked at the handle and started shouting louder. I was terrified. Then I saw another man jump out of the truck behind me, running toward my car with something in his hand.